make a motion, actually, I'd like to make a motion to move action item B to action item A, and move action item A to action item B.
Any particular reason?
Yeah, I think, oh, all right.
If you want to discuss it, somebody else has to second it.
Second.
Okay,
Now we can discuss it.
Yes.
thank you, Jeff. Motion by Brandon, vote by Tom. All right, now discussion.
Any particular reason?
Yeah, I think I want to speak to the policy updates, and then that will, I think that'll give me, I'll be in a better position to speak to the bond proposal, because I've mentioned a couple times my concern with curriculum and the lack of influence we have here at the local district level, and I see that with our policy updates as well. So I'd like to cover the policy updates and then move into the bond proposal.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same.
Aye.
I think, let's have a roll call vote.
I was just gonna say,
Please change it to a roll call vote.
Amy, will you please take a
change it to protect the kids in Allendale from some
1 minute.
radical ideology.
Strategic plans are no longer required by the state of Michigan. We have a district improvement plan that is made up with staff members. We have parents on that committee. We have had board members serve on that committee. The district improvement plan is the one that we submit to the state in the MyKIP format. So there's no requirement to have a strategic plan. I did gather information, which I shared with the board in my weekly update. If we did a strategic plan, typically districts hire an outside facilitator to do that. A couple of the retired superintendents who do that quoted about a $10,000 fee for doing that work. MASB would help us through that for approximately $13,500. And then there was another company called Lean, which we have a local parent who works for that company, and their quote was $35,000. So I just needed to know, I would suggest that if the board wants to move forward with a strategic plan, that we actually have some of these folks come in and make a presentation so that you can decide from there. But before I invite them in, I want to see if there's even a majority interest on the board to have a strategic plan.
When was the last time that we developed a strategic plan?
Right in the middle of COVID, about 2020.
Okay.
And that was, we never, we had.
We couldn't meet in person, so we had to do it all virtually. Yeah.
Did we was there a consultant involved in that process?
No, because you just couldn't do the things you normally would do in a strategic plan process where you would have community forums, and it just wasn't the good timing for that. So,
Okay.
And again, we knew the state was moving away from that requirement.
Okay. And MASB has offered to assist despite the fact that we're not members?
Yes, it actually would be cheaper if we were members. So for members, it's about $10,500. It's like $3,000 more for non-members.
Okay. You mentioned 3 possible vendors. Could we have more come in and present?
We could. There aren't a lot of people out there that do that. I mean, a lot of them are retired superintendents, so you're going to kind of get what you get.
Okay. All right.
I guess as part of this, I mean, is there a consensus to spend, obviously with our budget as tight as it is this something we want to spend a minimum of $10,000 on going forward?
From my perspective, yes, I think we need a strategic plan. And I think there may be savings found that offset the cost of having that consulting. And it gives us direction moving through the rest of the year with this bond proposal, how that fits in. And I think sets the next board up for success. So yes, I think it's worth the expense, personally.
I feel like I'm in opposition always, and that's not my intent, but I served on I was able to be involved in the district improvement plan, and I guess I fail to see the difference between a strategic plan compared to that, and maybe that's something that, I know there's not very many meetings, but maybe another board member could check out, but you also present us with some of that data. It was phenomenal. I mean, you've got community members in there, teachers in there, administrators in there, you've got coaches and things like that. It involves everything that a strategic plan would, with our own internal brains, which was great. I think with the use of our test scores and goals that we have for our superintendent, we're driving the district. It seems financially unwise to me, so I wouldn't have an appetite. I also don't believe a strategic plan would take a look at budget and start telling us where we could cut. I think that would maybe not be a place of that. It would be overarching goals, which I do think we have.
And I think the district improvement plan, because of, like you said, so many internal influences, it might create some bias, and I think a third party that specializes in that type of work probably makes sense.
Maybe, but I don't know if anyone wants us to be better than what we want ourselves, as far as some of that goes. So we're using objective data, some of the same things that are presented to us on some of our test score data and things like that is what really drives that. So they're not kind of random thought out goals, they're objective and they go through, every single one of them follows a SMART goal process. I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Is there typically, I did not look back at the one that's in place right now, but is there typically financial involved in strategic plan?
Nothing beyond what we already do. I mean, we create a 5-year facilities plan. We have a long-term technology plan. I mean, I guess that's financial when you think about that. Our last plan talked about adding athletic opportunities for students, creating more sports so more kids could play. Well, that's going to add costs. That's not going to subtract costs. And I would say that in terms of influence, I've been through this multiple times, obviously, long career. In my experience, the facilitators do everything they can to be as neutral as possible. The whole intent is to let the staff and the community, the parents who are on that committee, drive the plan. So, which is exactly what happens in the district improvement plan process. I don't think the strategic plan, they're not a consultant that comes in and tells you how to work your systems. They listen to the feedback they get from the people on the committee.
So if we did it, if we come back, bring some people in to present and decide we would have a committee then that would meet with these, multiple times. It's about a year-long process. There's a meeting a month, at least. It's a lot of time commitment, a lot of board commitment. Yep.
From my perspective, I think at least I see value in having some of the vendors come in and present and speak, because we're not experts in this, and so if we can see what they have to offer, it may sway our decision. The last consultant that we worked with, I had a really, really good experience with. I think we all did, so it's worth listening.
Is it worth bringing in a couple for a work session, either in July or August?
Well, there's no July work session, so it'd have to be August.
Yeah. I mean, is there anybody else that has objection to?
My question is, when was the district improvement plan done? When was that one done?
We have to speak to that.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. The district improvement plan?
Yeah, when was that?
We just submitted it for this year.
Yeah, so it's a 5-year plan overall, but every year we tackle what's going ready for next. So every year, and we just did it this spring, the district improvement team will look at all of the action set items that we have this year. We've been collecting data on, we rate how we finished the year, whether we met that, in progress, or not begun, and then we build next year's plan based on that. So overall, we have our long-term 5-year goal, but we have it broken down into year by year. Certain things have to be placed first, we use certain things, and there's different facets of it. There's academics and instruction, there's community involvement, there's communication, so it has different branches, and we have subgroups that really focus on each one of those.
I see the strategic plan at this point as being a duplication of effort. And I don't see a need for doing that again. I mean, and I've been through several strategic plans over the 12 years. Yeah.
And I feel like that maybe is speculation, and there's several of us on the board who haven't been through that process, so I think it'd be valuable to hear a little bit more about it from the consultants that are willing to come in and discuss it.
We can do that. The problem is, having not spent any time in one of our district improvement team meetings, what will you compare it to?
I think
That's
it would be a
kinda-
good introduction, if nothing else. I mean, if I don't get any exposure, you could say that. I mean, I would be happy to look at the district improvement plan before we have any presentations. Like, I can make that commitment. But it's speculation to say that there's not going to be any value in there. It's going to be a duplication of effort, and I don't have any perspective, so my vote doesn't count.
I'm just curious, when you say there's speculation about duplication of effort, but you're speculating that we're going to save money. So I don't understand how you're speculating that we're going to save money when you've never been through the process. I mean, you're speculating as well.
Duplication of effort, the speculation is that there'll be no value there. And it doesn't sound like you're interested, Garth, in pursuing this.
Because I've been through both processes and I know that they're almost exactly identical. I'm probably the one person up here who's been through more of these than anybody else. And so I kind of know that there's a duplication here. Again, if we want to spend the time and the money, we can do that.
Presentation does not cost much
No,
time or
no.
money. That's what I'm asking for.
And that's, I think, we're not committing to anything. If we, hey, MASB, you want to come and present, we're not guaranteeing we're doing it. You have a presentation, give it 15 minutes or 10 minutes. I
So-
think it's satisfied, and obviously, Beth, I think you present on ours pretty quick. And we will have, kind of some relative data or something to compare it against with your next district improvement.
Maybe we could align the presentations with the district improvement plan presentation.
Right, I'll take it under advisement, start planning to talk about it, and so we're not committing to anything with the presentation, so. Right.
Moving on, I got a couple of others. Number one, I want to address this talk that I've heard about GSRP and the GSRP curriculum. I've mentioned this in a weekly update. I need to mention it again publicly. There are multiple curriculums that can be chosen. So to say that we're mandated by the state which one we use is not accurate. We have the right to choose the curriculum we use. We've chosen the one that's research-based and has been chosen to be the most effective. To say that it has any kind of agenda, I think, is false. If you look at the schools that are using the creative curriculum, schools like Borculo Christian, which I think most people would find to be very conservative, uses the creative curriculum. So I think we have to be very careful about how we think about this curriculum. We have control over it. The board has decided in the past to use it, just like we've chosen an algebra curriculum and a biology curriculum and different social studies curriculums. The creative curriculum is one that we reviewed and selected. We can change it if we want to. There's nothing saying we have to use it, and there's no state mandate saying you have to use creative curriculum and GSRP. So I hope that we can dispel that myth, because it's just not accurate. And this idea that it's some liberal-leaning curriculum is not accurate. And I think if somebody wanted to say that it is, the responsible thing to do would be to bring in the part of the curriculum that they find to be liberal-leaning. Not just throw it out there that it's a radical left curriculum, but what is it in the curriculum that bothers you? I also think it would be the responsible thing to do to visit a GSRP classroom, to see it in action. We have 8 of them. It's easy to choose a room. Go see what our teachers are doing with that curriculum. I just think this comments that we're hearing about it being some kind of nefarious curriculum when it's used throughout almost the vast majority of GSRP and other preschool programming, and even some kindergarten programming, including in private schools, I think we have to do a little more research before we get wound up in the things we don't like about that curriculum, especially if we're not going to specify what it is that's bothering us.
So you mentioned that we can change the curriculum.
You can.
Can you dig a little bit more into that?
What's that?
Can you dig into that a little bit more? How can we change the curriculum?
Well, it would take action by the board and tell us that you want us to review, and I would have our GSRP team to work with the ISD and find out, bring you just like we do when we've selected other math curriculums or science curriculums. We have a committee get together, we pay for subs, we spend some money to have the teachers do some work, and then they'll come up with their top 3 recommendations. It's how we do it with every other curriculum, and then we bring those 3 to the board and see if there's questions.
And how many curriculum are there to
I think
choose
there's
from?
8. 8.
And they are dictated by the state? We could not
No.
create our own and receive those funds?
Oh, yeah, you could create your own, but that would be a ton of work.
And cost.
That would take a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of money. Yep. Writing a curriculum is a lot of
I have
work.
read, and I'll pull it back up, that changes to the curriculum or the manual that are given for Great Start Readiness require ISD approval and potentially the state board.
No. We have local control. Just like with our sex ed curriculum, we have local control. The state might give guidelines, they might suggest things, but we have local control.
Why is it that in the past when we've talked about this, you have said there are 3 curriculum to choose from, and we chose the creative curriculum?
I don't think I've said there's 3 curriculums. There's a lot of curriculum, there's 8 of them.
Right, but we have had conversations about it in open session where you have said there are 3.
Well, typically, like I said, what happens even with math and science and all of those, you pick your top 3. You don't bring all 8 to the board. I don't think this board wants to review 8 different curriculums. That's never been the case for any other subject. So we have a committee of teachers who narrow it down to 3, and then we bring those to the board is typically what we do.
Does Great Start Readiness, does that operate under a different charter than the public school? Because that's a different governing body. And public or private business can receive state dollars
Yeah.
for,
It's funded by the state.
So my understanding is you can receive those state dollars if you choose the state-directed curriculum.
There's nothing that ties you to their chosen curriculum. You have the right to choose your own curriculum and you'd still get those dollars.
If this isn't going to be wrapping up, I'd suggest that maybe we table this for an actual item for discussion so that full amount of information can be given to everyone. That's my suggestion, at least.
And I respect that, but it impacts my vote on the bond.
Then it can be discussed during the bond topic.
I thought that's where we were.
No, we're still
We're
on.
still on my discussion.
Items.
All right, well, that's a discussion item. But I'll wait.
And then, on the letters,
Absolutely.
the last
You
thing
can
I
bring
just
it up
want to
during
say
the
under my
bond.
discussion items is I just want to remind the board that while Amy, part of her job responsibility is to be the board secretary, Amy does a lot of things for the district, and so please be respectful of her time. Last-minute requests are going to be very hard for her to make. If you need information, please give her some lead time. And again, understand that she doesn't just wait for things to do for the board. She has a lot of other work to do. So I appreciate respecting that time for her. That's all I have for discussion.
Can I have a motion to approve the application?
We'll just read it once. I make a motion that this board approve the application for preliminary qualification of bonds as presented by the administration for filing with the Michigan Department of Treasury, and that the secretary of this board be authorized to sign the name.
Support.
Dr. Cooper,
Yeah, we discussed this at the last board meeting. With the two proposals were that were going to come forward. There's going to be we're looking to put 2 questions on the ballot. We did have our meeting with Treasury on June 10th, and they thought things looked really good. There were a couple of semantic things that we fixed up and clarified, but overall, the pre-qualifying application that you were sent as part of the board packet represents the information that you were given before. I do had Mr. Brad Hemis here from Fanning Howie in case there's any questions about the actual application, the bond, or the process. Brad has said he's very happy to share or answer any questions if you'd like him to.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cooper. Any discussion or questions?
I will just quickly say, and I know I said it before, but I will be supporting this because I think as board members, we can separate what we feel like as far as personally how we would vote on a bond as opposed to overseeing the process of the bond. And the process of this bond, I do think was developed very, very well. I think it was, I do think it was a well-represented committee to put together 2 questions. It is something different the community hasn't seen. I recognize and I fully respect, the last couple of no votes, and I understand that. But I think that we need to hear some of that feedback from people that said, there were a lot of people that weren't a straight no. It was I would have been a yes if, and I think that that is what this proposal has addressed, is a lot of those concerns, especially by splitting it into 2 questions. So I also think if people truly are no, there is an opportunity to continue to say that. So I believe that the responsibility of this board is to then put it back in the community's hands again.
Thank you, Liz.
And following up on Liz, I agree it's up to the community at this point. I just want to point out for the community, the MIRA program, the industrial program, the needs of the roofs, the parking lots, all that are very important. And I'm especially a person of athletics. I think last time when the bond came up, I was one of the told that I was not supporting the athletics. I am totally on board on the athletic part of it, so I want to make sure that's clear. I do want all the athletic stuff. But I do have a little bit of issue with the ECC building expansion on the fact that I'm not totally convinced that we have to follow the ISAD curriculum to a point, and so I don't have a total convinced that we don't have to follow the state guidelines, but overall, that's up to the community on how they want to do that. I just want to make it clear again that if we do spend the $66 million, that it doesn't change, and that according to our proposal, $13 million would go to the ECC, $4 million to the Evergreen, $2 million to Oakwood, $1 million to middle school, $26 million to high school, et cetera, in our proposal, and it doesn't, a new school board comes in January and all of a sudden, yeah, we have $66 million, let's all put it towards ECC. I don't want that to be the way it goes, so I just want to make sure that the dollars that we have designated go to the appropriate place. So.
And I think Brad would tell you, Tanya, that the state, that's why we go to Treasury.
Yeah. Okay, that's why I just want to make it clear.
With Treasury, this is a highly regulated and audited process from beginning to end. Every dollar that's in the application has to be very detailed going into it so that we know how we're going to spend the money moving forward. It is, at the end of the project, it is audited and every dollar goes where it was told to go, and it is a successful process.
Okay, because I do know the language in the bond says erect additions, remodeling.
It's a project that is filled with checks and balances.
Okay,
And it's
perfect.
very intentional.
All right, great. So I'm a yes on the bond.
Yeah. Hey, Tanya, so this is what the application looks like, and you can't put that on a ballot, so you can't put it on a ballot. So, yeah.
We'll call Garth.
Yeah. No, that's a good question, and I thank you for reassuring the community about that.
And I still have concern. I just Googled the Great Start Readiness curriculum, and it came up with 5 options. High Scope, the creative curriculum for preschool, Connect for Learning, Montessori, and Reggio Emilia. So,
When I contacted the ISD, she told me there were 8, because I specifically asked, because I wanted to be able to tell you, and she told me there were 8. I could get the names for you, and I'm happy to do that, but.
okay. Well, I mean, it's just the, here we are voting on a bond, $13 million. Are there 8 curriculum? Are there 5 curriculum? Is it mandated by the state? What influence? Well, now at the local district level, we can create it. We could write it from scratch. There's nothing that prevents us from doing that, and that's like, I'm getting some mixed information, and it's a $13 million investment that we take away from K through 12, sort of traditional school, and are investing it in, Great Start Readiness, which, I love that we can provide that opportunity to 4-year-olds and their families, especially when it was needs-based. But I just have a lot of concern about the influence that the board would have on the curriculum, on the students. And again, I'm sort of not getting a good feeling about the information that I'm receiving. So one thing that I think the board should consider is sending the proposals back to the steering committee, putting 3 items on the bond, 1 for the Great Start Readiness expansion, 1 for the maintenance items, and another for the field house.
Well, I asked the question, Brad was there when we asked, so was Troy for that matter. We would not make the November ballot because you'd have to reschedule a new hearing with Treasury, and then we'd have to come back to you for another approval, and then the Treasury has to have 30 days after your approval, and then to get it on the ballot. And as we crunch the calendar together, that wouldn't work. So if that's what we wanted to do, it would be delaying this till at least, I guess, next May, which then puts it in an off election, and people aren't excited about that.
And that's disappointing because back in, when we started talking about this, one of my concerns was, do we have enough time for this? And to go through this entire process, are we giving ourselves enough time? And we haven't built any contingency in for the board to look at a proposal, request changes, and send it to have any kind of a communication with the steering committee. It's here's what it is, and here's what it is.
You had an opportunity. You had an opportunity. You didn't come to the last 2 meetings. You had an opportunity.
Shots fired.
So did Liz, and so did Kevin, and we have some members here who were on that steering committee as well. I presented 3 questions at the last meeting. I pushed for 3 questions at the last meeting, Brandon. I wanted 3 questions, but the steering committee said 2 questions. And I'm respecting our parents and our community members and our staff and our administrators and our board members that were there. That's what the steering committee chose. So I don't understand how going back to them would make a difference, because I presented it from the get-go of that last meeting as 3 questions. I did.
It was presented as different campuses. I think there was 3 questions also presented, I think 3 different ways. I mean, there was
a couple different ways to do it.
Different ways of cutting it up and slicing it up, and yeah, this is obviously after, the first night, that was 3 hours. We kind of condensed it, decided closely into 3 proposals, and then at the end, the steering committee, after another hour of deliberation, decided to go to 2.
I mean, I even at the end, when they pushed it into 2, pushed back again. Kevin will back me up on that, where I was concerned about the 66 million. I wanted to keep it at 50 or less. And so I'm telling you, Brandon, I pushed for it, but you have to respect the steering committee. And the other thing I'd like to say about that is, this is the 3rd different steering committee that has gone through this bond proposal process, from anywhere from 25 to 45 members. And the first time we had Triangle and TMP help us with the process. And this time we had Fanning Howey, who came in with a clean slate and a fresh vision and got all new feedback. all three of those different steering committees prioritized expanding the ECC. All three of them did. That's our community. And there were different people on those committees. In fact, the first committee was more athletic people than, I think the only one who showed up for the first one might have been the ECC principal and one of the staff members. It wasn't a lot of representation there. So I understand your concern, but again, we followed the process. You yourself mentioned you thought Fanning Howey followed a tremendous process. You said that in May. Their process led us here. This is where it brought us. And again, I wish it were 3 questions too, but I was just one guy in the room and I wasn't, you know, my vote was half a vote, really. I tried very hard to stay neutral. So I understand your concerns. I'm not thrilled with the price tag either, but it does represent a good process. And for the 3rd time, our steering committee came back with, we would like to invest in expanding the ECC.
Well, and I think it makes sense, especially the way that Fanning Howey presented it. And, you know, that's obviously our fastest growing, you know, group of students. So
Yeah.
I see value and the need from that perspective, but we just can't pinpoint this curriculum thing, it doesn't seem like. Because, you know, I was under the impression 3, I just heard 8, now I'm Googling 5. So I'll do additional research on that. But,
Can I have Tammy Manis, who's the ISD director of GSRP, contact you? Maybe
Absolutely.
hear directly from Tammy?
Yep.
I will connect her with you then, if that's okay
Yeah.
with the board?
Didn't we select this curriculum?
Years ago, years ago, yeah.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, I guess I'm a little fuzzy on this whole how many curriculums. We selected this. This is what we chose.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd say too is we service about 160 kids a year in the GSRP program. And I think if you talk to most folks, they would tell you that Allendale's a pretty conservative community, right? So of that 160 students, most of them come from what you would consider a conservative home. I have never, in the 9 years I've been here, had a single complaint or concern from a parent about that curriculum. Not one. Not one. And so that's why I'm saying if there's something specific in the curriculum that bothers us, I would want to know about it, quite honestly, because, you know, there have been times where something has happened in a class and it gets back to me and I'm pretty darn angry about it and I'm going to take care of it. So if there's something specific, I'd love to be able to address it. But I have faith in our community. I have faith in the people that live in my neighborhood who rave about our GSRP program. I mean, I don't want to name drop, but there are people who live in my community who just can't say enough great things about our GSRP program, who I know are very conservative individuals. So I'm not sure what it is that is on the radar, I guess, is all I'm saying. So
I've had that same experience. I have only ever heard good things about the staff here, the way the kids are treated, just the entire experience of it. I've never heard anything except great things. My concern goes back to the curriculum. So the 3 or the 5 or the 8, just let's level set. Are there any, or are all of those curriculum dictated by the state? Or are there any other vendors that we can choose and still get those state funds? Because my concern, I'm looking into the future for the future students. And that program is likely to continue to expand, especially if we make the $13 million investment in expanding the building. And I understand exactly why that makes sense for our evergreen students and for the entire campus, and to position us for the future. So I have had the same conversations, and they've all been not just like, oh yeah, the ECC and the program, well, that's a good program. There are people who do rave about it. But that's because of the people that Allendale has, our staff, our faculty, you know, that's not because necessarily the curriculum, what's being taught. And my concern is, what does that look like in the future? When we went through a lot of the controversial things that we went through in, 2022, 2023, a lot of, people that I reached out to who are in the education profession, it was, well, this is our job. This is what, this is, this is what we're paid to do, and this curriculum or this, whether I believe in it or not, or want to contribute or condone or anything like that, there wasn't latitude for them to do that, because there was, at the time, like federally mandated items that, had to be addressed, like the Title IX stuff.
I don't think
talked
that's
a lot about.
that's never been part of the GSRP, because that's a state-run program. So there might be some things in Head Start, because Head Start is a federal program, and so there could be, and people get, because they're both preschool type programs, so it could be some of what you're hearing was a Head Start program, not a GSRP. Some folks just see it as preschool. I do know when you think about the future, Allendale Child Care over a live stream is getting a GSRP classroom for next year, and they're choosing the creative curriculum as well. So I do think even as new programs come online and they have choices, because they got a blank slate, they can use whatever they choose to use, they're choosing creative curriculum as well. So
They probably have a little more agility, and they're not asking the community for a $13 million investment to expand the program.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say, I think that there's a lot of folks who believe in the creative curriculum and its value. But I'll contact Tammy Manis and ask her to reach out to you. Yeah.
All right, any other discussion on the motion?
Yeah. Are we going to separate the proposals into two separate votes, or are we voting on all or none?
Yeah, it's all part of the same application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Holsteg,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Tenbrink,
I'm looking forward to talking to Tammy right now.
Thurkettle,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, Brad. You can stay and talk about policy if you'd like to. But you can.
I have a motion to approve the changes to the NOLA policy.
Motion, oh, sorry.
Make a motion to amend that, just so that we can leave out policy 2418 on a separate vote. Support.
Motion.
2418. So it's in its own vote.
We can't, that means you would be adding another voting item to the agenda, which means we'd have to amend the agenda, which would then take a different motion since we already set the agenda.
Separate the motion. We've done this in the past, and we really separate the motion.
But now you're asking to take and make a new vote. That's where,
Do we have to subtract it from the motion?
well, you can take something out of a motion, but to take something out and then to vote on that one separately is creating another vote. So the amendment vote, well, unless the amendment vote is to vote on all of the policies except for one,
Can we do it that way?
we could vote on that and then leave the original, what was it, 2418? Leave that in the original amendment. So your motion then would be to amend to vote on all policies except for 2418.
Correct.
We could vote on that, and then if that passes, then we vote on the other one, but that would only include 2418.
So, but we would have to, we have to.
Divide the
We
question.
did, I'm trying to remember.
The motion to divide the question.
What, would we have to, would it have to be an amendment or a motion? Would we have to present it as it's written on the agenda? And then have an amendment, or a motion to amend afterwards? If I'm not mistaken. Does that make sense? Because
I
this
think
is,
we vote on the amendment first, but then you were
Yes.
right, we have to come back to the original.
Well, once you pass an amendment, though, that becomes the original. So that's why you vote twice. So like if you
Okay.
amended to remove
2418.
2418, and that was your motion, that would have to pass. Everyone would have to vote on that, and then that would get removed from the original. And then the original becomes the amended, if the
Gotcha.
amended passes.
Gotcha.
If the amended doesn't pass, then we're back talking about the original again.
Yeah, okay.
So you could do that, but then that means if it does pass, then that means that 2418 does not pass, and we don't get to vote on it.
Correct.
What happens to 2418?
It would not pass, and we don't get to vote on it
it
tonight.
would have to go
And
into
push
the
to
next.
another meeting,
Yeah.
essentially. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I make a motion to amend this action item D to take out policy 2418.
Support.
Motion by, support by Tom.
You ready?
So we have to vote on.
Oh, that's right.
We can do, I mean, if we think that it's gonna pass and it's gonna remove, then we don't really need to have discussion. If we don't think it's gonna pass and you wanna have discussion, either way, we can have discussion now.
We should have discussion on.
Let's have discussion about what we think about removing 2418 before Dr. Cooper goes through his whole
And I guess it would
commentary.
be-
Yeah.
I will give the floor to you
Okay.
to give
Yeah,
us
so
why we
I-
want to do this.
So the reason I wanted to do this is because I had some concerns with, what the Michigan Health Education Standard Guidelines are. And now, looking up on the email that we got of what it says, I cannot vote yes to make that go through. So that's why I wanted to remove it.
Yes, and I pulled it up, and I actually, before I even ran it, got it, and I seen it, it's got a lot more wording on it than, and it's also just guidelines, so I think it should have been removed and not put on the, policy to begin with. So, I was going to recommend the same thing before even Anna had brought it up, so.
Is there
I just-
something in particular?
Yeah, if you look
I
at
guess I don't-
page 61 from that email we got today, the link, and it talks about grades 3 through 5, or no, 60.
Can I just interject 1 second? I did look it up, Anna, and it's called motion to divide. You can make the motion to divide the questions so that the two items can be considered and voted on separately. All it takes is a motion to divide requires a second and a simple majority vote to pass. Once the motion passes, the separated policy is debated and voted on by itself. So we could.
Is that essentially still the same as what we're thinking?
No, because if we do the motion to amend it, and you just removed it, if that passes, then we can't vote on that. If you do the motion to divide, we could still vote on that policy separated from the other policies,
In what circumstance?
like
If the-
tonight yet.
Right, but, so which one would pass and then not vote on the other, or which would?
They become
Fail.
disconnected then at that point.
Okay.
So we can have a conversation on, we can have a vote on totality and conversation on the whole group of policies minus the 2418, and then have a separate conversation and separate vote on the 2418.
So do we need to go back to the original? Because she's already made a motion.
Yeah,
It's already been supported.
yep. Okay, great.
But, so if we,
Continue.
We could, if, I'm just saying, if we keep going that route, so we vote against that right now and just have a vote, the original motion is still back on the table. And then you could do the motion to divide, and then we
So
could still
basically,
vote on them
everyone
both
in
tonight.
favor of doing the amended motion like I made, you vote yes. If you'd rather divide the question, then you're gonna wanna vote no.
Correct.
Okay.
Can be very clear with
Yeah.
what a yes or no vote.
Yeah, so a no, if you vote no, then that means we're not going to approve the amendment that she asked for. And the original motion will still be on the table, and she'll be able to make a new motion to divide, and we will have two separate votes then. We'd have a vote separately for 24-18, and then we'd have the original vote for the other policy updates.
I think personally, I don't know, just so we can divide the question.
Yeah, then we can still vote. That's the way to have us still be able to vote on all of them presented tonight.
All right.
Is that,
so now, so,
Which way do you want to do it?
so you're asking that if we vote,
If we
if we have a
divide,
vote before we have a discussion, then we can divide.
so if we vote no on what was just amended, then I'm going to make a new motion to divide the question so that we can vote on 24-18 itself, and then the rest of it in a whole chunk.
yes.
See, this is a house of learning. We're all getting an education tonight.
I guess before we go to a vote, I'm curious about what you want to do to 24-18. Are we changing it, or are we deleting it?
Not deleting
You'd
it,
rather remove.
just not making the updates that were recommended, yes.
So if we vote, if we were to vote yes, we wouldn't vote on it, because then it wouldn't be changed.
Oh.
So why would we divide it? If the only reason wouldn't be to divide it would be if you wanted to change it,
Right. That's
in my
fair.
opinion, right?
No, because if the other one, if the motion is going to be to accept the policies as presented, that's all the policies that are presented.
But she already wants to take out 24-18.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's why we can vote on that separately to not approve it, and the other ones then can be approved.
Yes.
I heard what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying? I'm saying if we're going,
If we're gonna
if
remove
there's
it,
enough support to remove it, you want to
Then it would
make
stay.
it, then we would vote on the other one without this being in there.
Correct.
We would vote on this without.
But just a vote to remove it isn't a vote on the policy.
On policy, correct.
So
But
if you
we-
want to make a
but
vote
it would-
on the
it would-
policy,
But it would give us the ability to vote on it in a future meeting with changes that somebody would want.
how are we going to come to the conclusion of those changes?
It would have to go back to
Back
a
to
work
work
session and, you know, I guess that's part of
Well-
why I thought we had started doing work sessions, so we had this stuff before we came to vote. You know, we're coming to a meeting and we're voting on it, asking for changes.
I'd just like to share that the things that you read in there are not required. And I can show you in that document where it's not required, if you'll let me share that with the board. I printed it out. Wasn't time to do 70 pages for everybody, but I printed out some stuff that I think is pretty important. Can I hand that out? Because it might make a difference on whether or not you want to vote on 23-18 or not. I'd like to just share it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think everybody has an email with this
Yeah, but I just get a sense that we're missing some pretty critical pieces here. And so I highlighted these.
How far do we need to go down?
That should be,
These are all the same page, right?
yeah, 2 pages. It's double-sided, I should say.
Oh, yeah, I think we're good. Yeah.
One more, I guess.
So if you look where I highlighted in the document that came out in that link that you have, on page 5, right in the document from the state, it says, Michigan is a local control state. Therefore, local education agencies use standards and guidelines set by the state board to select a curriculum that best supports the needs of their students. You don't use all the guidelines, you use what you want. It says the standards and guidelines focus on what's most essential for student learning, but does not describe all that can and should be taught. It doesn't tell you what should be taught, just tells you what can be taught. Down below it says, in Michigan, school districts have discretion to determine how the standards and guidelines will be implemented at the local level. So we have that discretion. That's why we have a CEB. Page 15, the Michigan legislature has passed laws. There are some requirements that we must teach. Those are communicable diseases, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, automated external defibrillators, and substance abuse and the negative effects on the body. It also says on page 15, there's always parent choice outlined. And then at the bottom, it says, local district's choice in the curriculum is adopted at the local level. So it talks about both are typically included, but local districts choose the curriculum adopted. Then if you look on the back, sorry, I don't know why I printed this way. Those are the things that are required. These are the only things that are required. Physiology, hygiene, and of course then there's a parent opt-out, dangerous communicable diseases, and again the opt-out, and the CPR law. Those are the only required elements. None of those other things you see in that 70 pages are required to be taught. And I think Anna's on the, you're on the CEB, aren't you, Anna? And I wish Liz were still here. I think those things you're concerned about are not in our curriculum, and they don't have to be in our curriculum.
But they could
I
be.
think it's the wording.
But the only way they could be is if our sex ed advisory board voted to include them, had 2 public hearings, and then the board approved. There is such a huge layer that you have to go through. You can't get more local control than that.
You could get a different board and that could happen.
But you're not going to get a different community, and it has to go through 2 public community hearings. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, by that token, Tanya, a new board could revisit this policy and change the wording of this policy, and then it's right back in. But, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be silly, but that could happen too.
Let's not put it in until we need to put it in, but at this point, I don't want it in. So.
Well, and then we have to remember that you're not voting to eliminate policy 2318. That hasn't been motioned.
No.
So, but what I'm saying is it's still there. So we
Correct.
still have sex ed and we still have most of those pieces. I don't think there's anything in the recommendations that.
So I understand everything you're saying, and I appreciate this paper that you printed out for us. My concern with this policy in the new updated version from Neola is towards the bottom in the green, it says on that first page, it says instruction shall be organized around grade spans 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, and all shall address content areas appropriate to each span as detailed in AG 2418 and aligned with the Michigan Health Education Standard Guidelines. And so just reading through some of this where it talks about the sex education and for grades 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and then it gets into the 9 through 12. This 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet point where it gets into what a child by the end of 8th grade should be able to define. In the wording in the policy where it says aligned with Michigan Education Standard Guidelines, like, I don't feel, this is very concerning to align with some of the wording in this guideline. I don't even, when I was reading this aloud, I didn't even want my kids to hear some of this. And, you know, my oldest is going into 6th grade. Explain that romantic, emotional, and/or sexual attractions can be toward an individual of the same or different genders, and that attractions can change over time. Like, that just doesn't align with my personal beliefs. Obviously, my personal beliefs is not the community, but I just have concerns about some of the wording that is in here.
Yeah, I get it. And we talked about this in April, maybe. Remember when this first came out, and I talked about it in my comment? I said, we know the new standards are out. We have reviewed them. We are not including any of this.
Right. I just don't want this personally for my vote in 2418, our policy. The new wording.
Well, you can't. It's not going to go away just because we don't have it in our policy. It's still going to hang out there, and it's not required by law, so there's nothing saying we have to do those things, but this doesn't make it disappear. I mean, I honestly don't care. I'm just trying to help you, really. You could take 2418 out of your policy handbook for all I care. It doesn't matter. We could stop teaching sex ed for all I care. We've talked about that before. But we have a lot of protections in place to make sure those parts of the curriculum that you're concerned about won't be ever taught in this district. And the Sex Ed Advisory Board is our first line of defense, then the public hearings, and then this board. No curriculum change gets made to our sex ed curriculum without this board voting on it. So I understand your concerns. I'm just trying to highlight the fact that there are guardrails already in place for it. That's all I'm saying.
Appreciate
That's
that.
all I'm saying.
One of your highlighted items here is local education agencies use standards and guidelines set by the State Board of Education to select curriculum that best supports the needs of their students. What is the local education agency?
Us. Every school district is considered an LEA. So Allendale Public Schools is an LEA. It's, local educational agency. So Allendale's an LEA. Coopersville Public Schools is an LEA. So we're an LEA.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, good. I know, they throw those acronyms around and just think we all know exactly what they mean.
So adoption to align with the standards and guidelines, that is not a requirement. So we don't need that in our board policies.
I'm sorry, which?
So reference to the Michigan Health Standards Guidelines.
Don't have to have it.
Because it seems to me when we put that in the board policy, the directive we're giving to the district, the creator of the curriculum, is to use standards and guidelines set by the State Board of Education.
And we do, and we did. So the curriculum we have used the state guidelines, but we took out the pieces we didn't want our kids to get, and that's the way it would be.
In our current policy, though, we don't reference specifically the standards and guidelines.
I think this is there. I don't want to speak for Varnum Law, but what I heard when we did the update with our representative from Neola, this is just sort of a local assurance to your community. So, for example, a district shouldn't be teaching their kids that abstinence is bad. Like, the state curriculum says repeatedly, abstinence is the way to go. So by saying we're going to follow the guidelines, and the guidelines say abstinence is important, we're telling our community we're going to just, we're not doing what everything is in there. We're not teaching all of that curriculum, but the curriculum we do teach is not going to be outside of what that framework is, if that makes sense.
Well, it's going to follow state law. And you've got the requirements of Michigan laws, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets.
Right. That's it. Those are the only things you have to do.
In the document.
And you don't have to use any of those others. These are the only ones you have to teach.
And I expressed my satisfaction with our current 2418 in the May 11th meeting. So
and you can keep that.
Yes.
Yep. That's the one thing I checked with Neola. Remember, Neola said you can leave it. You can take the new and leave the old, so it's all there. Because I think that was one of the things was the, about a reasonable method of training or whatever. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see no reason to expose ourselves to any of this. So, and I'm happy with our current policy, so. And we have curriculum that's been developed and seems to be productive using our current policy, so.
So if we vote on the motion that was amended that I made, then essentially 2418 will get pushed to the next meeting.
No, right, so if her motion is to approve as presented, removing 2418, the only ones that get updated are the non-2418, and 2418 is still a policy but doesn't get updated.
Oh,
And so then there's
then I'm
not
fair with,
another
then I'm
vote?
good to
That's
vote
what
yes on this.
That's why I didn't want to divide it.
Got
Is
you.
that what
You
your
want to divide it
amendment
if
was?
you want to do an amendment.
Or your, sorry.
From how it was presented.
We keep saying amendment, there's no amendment. She made the original motion. Nobody else made a motion.
No, yeah, correct.
So we haven't made an amendment yet. So if there was,
Yeah.
somebody else was gonna make an amendment, they could still do that.
Yes.
But her motion is the original motion. There's no other motion.
Yeah, we always look at what's on the paper as the original, but it's really not.
It's
just
what you say.
Offered up as a,
Yeah,
but you
correct.
made your own motion, so that is the original, not the one on the paper.
Okay.
That's what Josh is saying.
But yeah, I just didn't want us to
Yeah.
divide it, or to not, to vote no and,
Yeah.
and bring it back together and make a new, we'd have to make a.
Yeah,
new
I mean,
motion.
if
That
what
makes
I
sense.
said is how Anna is saying it, I think that that's what's happening. She made a motion to approve all except for 2418. That means a yes vote would approve all of these other policies except for 2418. That stays in its
Yep.
current form and doesn't change.
Got
The
it.
other ones all get updated. That would be a yes vote.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you for
Okay.
clarifying, Josh.
all right. Any further discussion on any of the other policies or this one?
Please no.
Amy, can we have our roll call vote, please? Oh,
Does this mean you're actually approving the policies and you don't want me to read through them, so this is just it? The policies are
yeah,
just approved?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, sweet.
That's why I'm.
Take the roll.
Or disagree. Or disagree. I'm sure something like that.
Ten Brink.
No.
Thurkettle.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Holsteg.
Yes. The motion passes. Can I have a motion to adjourn at 6:38?
I make a motion to adjourn at 6:38 PM.
Support, sorry. I'm still figuring out where we're at.
Support by Tanya. All in favor, say aye.
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 All is the same. Motion passes.
So, 2418, do we, we're keeping it the way that it is, we won't see that
It's still a
again.
policy, and we didn't accept the updates. So whatever it
To
said.
that one.
To that one.
I didn't want to-
So then you voted how you wanted, yeah. You didn't misvote then for what you wanted. So her motion was to approve all the policies except 2418.